Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam & Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right. So, one of the things I want to talk about today are the president's approval numbers. A lot of scuttlebutt about this. People think Trump is in deep trouble. Now, look, the number one narrative out there right now that the left is pushing is that what Trump is doing with immigration is unpopular. And the reason they're pushing this, of course, is because there's nothing that the Democrats want to destroy more than Trump's highly successful immigration push. They tried to defeat Trump in the polls. Obviously, that did not succeed. And ever since then have been trying to, either through the courts or through the legislative branch, through Congress, to stymie the president's deportation efforts. None of that has proven successful. And of course, as you know, ICE has now received record funding from Congress and is proceeding quite nicely with their immigration efforts. Illegal immigration enforcement efforts. So what's this all about? So CNN, I saw this yesterday, did a quite an aggressive takedown of the president's approval ratings, showing a number of polls that were, I think, chosen, really selected out of all the available polling. These polls, were the worst of Trump's numbers. And these are, by the way, from polls that historically have been very wrong about where Trump sits. Now, just as they did this yesterday, funny enough, this morning, Harvard-Harris released their own poll. Now, Harvard-Harris, not a Trump poll, and it's, not a historically conservative poll by any stretch of the imagination. But they had some interesting finds. I'll just go through this here real fast. This poll was taken July 6th to the 8th. There were over 2,000 respondents. And this poll wanted to track any changes of sentiment among voters from June till now. Now, what they found is that overall, Trump's approval rating went up by a point. So not a particularly significant number, but still went up slightly. Net approval numbers. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I think all of these categories, major categories, were underwater. For example, inflation. People think negative 11 on inflation. I don't even think that's possible. Prices are coming down. Objectively, the inflation numbers are down. It ticked up. There's some recent news today that they ticked up slightly. But remember, that was before this poll was taken. So that's it. Tariffs, also obviously negative 10 there. Kind of not surprised by that one. Economy, negative 5. Foreign affairs, where Trump has been, I think, very successful, okay, minus 4. And that takes me to immigration, which, according to the Harvard-Harris poll, was positive 4. So, look, the short takeaway on this is that majorities, and when you break it down, by the way, into individual political groups, the overall, here's a question, right, in this polling. Do you support or oppose the immigration's efforts to deport criminals who are here illegally? Okay, criminals in the country illegally. 75% support this. The GOP, 93%. I mean, who the hell are the 7% that said no? Okay, independents, 70%. And even among Democrats, a staggering 59%. Wow. Most voters also oppose local authorities blocking these criminal alien deportations. People think police should cooperate with ICE. GOP 72%, independents 69%, even Democrats 52%. That's wild. So this is I mean, I'm just telling you, this is interesting news. By the way, is Trump going too far? Do you think the administration is doing the right thing in enforcement of immigration policy? Or do you think it's going a bit too far in enforcement actions? 52%, majority, slim majority, but still 52% doing the right thing. GOP 85, independent 46, Democrats, of course, 23%. So it's just, I am putting this out there that the narrative that the left is pushing right now seems to be a bit askew. Now, the one area of concern is the subject of due process, because here's a test that was put in this Harvard-Harris poll. Which is closer to your view? We need more due process and guaranteed hearings, or we need to act quickly to deport criminals from the country? And 59% said we need more due process. GOP only 36%, but then independents 63% and Democrats at 79%. Now, this is what the Trump administration has to do on the subject. And number one, the Democrats have been given the opportunity by Trump to define what due process is. Trump sits there and he gives the same answer always about talking about due process. By the way, he always says, well, you can't have a long drawn out court case. You can't do that. Trump needs to explain, and the administration needs to explain, how we are ensuring due process, how we are making certain that people are being vetted before they're deported. And the answer is that constitutionally, as I've explained, you don't need to go through a court process. You can have an administrative hearing, particularly if somebody is subject to a previous sanctioned deportation order, as many of these people are. We need to talk about this. Trump needs to talk about this. The administration needs to talk about this. And for whatever reason, they really have not. And of course, the media is spreading the same usual lies about how people are being just sent off to Alligator Alcatraz and then jettisoned out of the country with their constitutional rights violated. So that's the only place. Now, what does this mean for Trump? Well, number one, look, the Trump administration right now is going to face, on the subject of immigration, well, I'll say this, because of immigration, an enormous hostile push from every Democrat out there. Whatever the rank and file of the Democratic Party thinks, and I'll point you back to this, that even Democrats here, 59% of Democrats think that criminal aliens should be, sent packing. The Democratic Party understands that this is a major problem to everything that they tried to do and accomplish under Biden, and frankly, in previous decades, a little more surreptitiously, certainly, but under Biden, this flood of humanity, this mass importation of third world, many times dangerous, illegal aliens into the country was always going to be a power play by the Democratic Party to seize political control for decades to come. Now the plan is unraveling. They've been called out, and Trump is going to draw an enormous amount of fire. And the fight is on for the midterms. That's what this is all about. And you will see hostile polling, because the story now is going to be, and I'll play it for you here when we get back, CNN will run, because of these crappy polls, will run stories about how unpopular Trump is. And it will be all in an effort to get people sitting at home who may be independents, maybe Democrats light, people who otherwise support immigration go, well, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe Trump is a monster. Maybe I'm in the minority of people, when that clearly is not the case. So beware of this. And I'll tell you when we come back too, there is polling, I think, that is problematic for Trump. There is a story here he needs to get out in front of a little bit better. So I'll take you through that, because there is some risk. There's another credible pollster showing risk to Trump and his numbers. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right show, is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam & Ash 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. So last night on CNN, Harry Enton, the chief data nerd, came in with Trump's polling numbers based on a number of polls. And by the way, these are all the polls that have gotten everything wrong about Trump over the years. Everything, literally everything. Okay. So Enton goes in with the immigration poll numbers. Now, remember, polling has since come out, as I was mentioning last segment, that shows it's a Harvard-Harris poll, which is inconvenient for this narrative, +4 on the subject of immigration. The Harvard-Harris poll is not a pro-Trump poll, but is certainly one of a higher quality than Gallup, let's say, in Quinnipiac. So here's Harry Enton on immigration, and they are just gleeful about reporting this. They are so happy that this is what's going on.
How is the president doing on immigration at this point?
In a word, Kate, oof. What are we talking about here? Take a look at this. Trump's net approval rating on immigration. Got 5 numbers for you across the screen here. A lot of focus on Gallup at -27. That's horrible. Quinnipiac University, -16. That's awful. Marist is bad at -9. Ipsos is -8. Fox at -7. Bad. So going from your left side, bad, to just downright terrible on the right side of your screen, the American people have turned against President Donald Trump on what was his best issue, one in which he had a positive net approval rating for most of his term, and arguably the issue that got him, of course, the GOP nomination all the way back in 2016, and one of the issues, of course, he used last year to quite a successful degree.
Now, the next part of this gets wild to me, because I just want you to observe, folks, the smoke and mirrors that is used by the mainstream media when they report the so-called facts. Kate Bolden asks Harry Enton, the data guy, so tell me now about the president's approval numbers. Okay, overall approval numbers. And watch what he pivots to. Watch where he gives the answer.
Is there signs that this is affecting his overall approval?
Okay, so you see this here, and then the question is, does this actually matter to folks? Why don't we zone in Hispanic voters, right? Because obviously a lot of the immigrants who have been affected by this have been Hispanic voters in terms of the immigration crackdown. Take a look here. Trump's net approval rating amongst Hispanics. Remember, Trump put in a historic performance last fall among Hispanic voters, did better than any Republican nominee dating all the way back since we have data in 1972. His net approval rating among Hispanics in February was pretty gosh darn good for a Republican at -2 points. Look at how far it's fallen now in June, according to CBS News YouGov, at -26 points. And I should note, CBS News YouGov is not alone on this. This is what we see in the averages as well. Donald Trump was doing historically well for a Republican amongst Hispanics in terms of his net approval rating, and now he's basically back where he was during his first term, which is quite a low approval rating, one in which has brought his overall approval rating down amongst the entire electorate.
Well, listen, he asked about the net approval. What's the net approval? How's the overall approval numbers? And he immediately goes to Hispanic support. Now, by the way, are they ensuring that the people that are answering these polls, here's a question I have. Ensuring that the people that are answering these polls are actually registered likely voters? You know, it's interesting to me. I don't know that they are. And here's another thing. Let's just assume for a moment that Trump has lost some support among Hispanics, okay, for immigration. I'm convinced, look, you start cleaning up predominantly Hispanic Latino neighborhoods, you demonstrate that by going in and enforcing immigration laws, you actually clean up these neighborhoods, make criminal activity, reduce criminal activity, make the standard of living of people there better. To me, this is transitory. But the pressure on Trump to buckle and to change and to reverse course is massive, because that is not something that the Democratic Party wants. Oh, by the way, they're also lamenting that ICE isn't popular. ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. They apparently, their poll numbers are in the toilet.
And one thing that has been very clear is that as this crackdown has continued, it has put immigration enforcement, ICE, in a whole new spotlight across the country. What are the numbers on ICE now?
Yeah, what are the numbers on ICE? It's not just affecting Donald Trump, it's affecting ICE as well. ICE's net approval rating. In Trump's first term, the average was 0 points, right? So right there on the bottom, as many approve as disapprove. Look at where we are now in June of 2025. Minus 17 points all the way down. So the bottom line is this immigration crackdown not being viewed popularly by the American public, bringing Donald Trump down and bringing immigration and custom enforcement down with him.
I am convinced these polls are cooked. And I'm convinced, okay, that the outlier, you'll see here, right? They're taking the outlier, they're ignoring the outlier polls. We'll see if they run any correction to this after the Harvard-Harris poll came out this morning. That will be interesting. So we'll, update you tomorrow on that. But the long and the short of it, folks, you got to understand is between now and November of 2026, there will be an absolute full court press by everybody from elected Democrats to Democratic operators to the Democratic media trying to get Trump to buckle down. Well, to give it up, I should say. To weaken. That's what's going to happen. But of course, in the meantime, you're going to start seeing positive effects of these immigration reforms and enforcement. So this is cooking. Now, there's, of course, and I want to develop this here a little bit after the break, honestly, because I want to spend a little bit of time on it. Rasmussen, which is, Rasmussen Reports is one of the best, if not the best, polling groups in the country. Mark Mitchell, who is their lead pollster, longtime Republican operative, and one of maybe only two polls that got things absolutely right in the last election cycle, has a different theory on what is the true risk to Donald Trump. Now, some Democrats are picking up on this, and they're exploiting it. And according to Rasmussen, according to Mark Mitchell, in polling that was also released today, the key issue facing Trump actually is, if you can believe this, Epstein. Now, I have a theory on this. I'll take you through the numbers after the break, but it's pretty straightforward. The entire MAGA movement, if you trace the origins of Trump as a political force in America to 2015 and the ride down the escalator, the promise of Trump meant that there would be one standard of justice in this country, that elites, by virtue of their power, their political connections, could no longer get away with stuff the way that they once had. And the reason Hillary Clinton lost and Trump won in 2016 was because exactly this corrupt system that Epstein is a representation of was rejected by so many Americans. For Trump now to blow this off and to just say, look, there's nothing to see here, trust me, isn't going to work. And he has only himself to blame for it. He has Pam Bondi to blame for it. I'll get into this here in a moment. But don't underestimate this issue, folks. This is going to be, and when you see the numbers, wow. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Email me, sam@whatsrightshow.com. That's the place to get a hold of me. I do read each and every one of your emails, folks. Here on the What's Right show, I am personally, and the only person that gets the emails here, so just be aware. I try to respond as quickly as I possibly can. Welcome back to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. So, for polling today, lots and lots of polls getting released. And the sharks over there in the newsrooms across America, circling the waters, smelling blood. And I'm thinking this is not so fast, but a peril for Trump, a danger for the president exists. Now, let me tell you what this is. So Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports did all sorts of polling on the Epstein issue. You know that among independents, he found that only 14% say that the case is closed? I believe that, by the way. I fundamentally believe it. I mean, who thinks the matter is closed? Who doesn't believe that there are people walking among us? Well, maybe not among us because they live lives very premier and exclusive, but that are here on this earth today that participated in the rape of children. Now, I'm not saying if it's provable or not. I'm just saying that I understand this polling. This polling rings true. 15% believe DOJ and FBI when they say there's no client list. This is one of the most reputable pollsters in the country, if not the most reputable. Also, by the way, I believe that number. That rings true. Among independents who are a driving political force in this country and who are largely responsible for Trump, I think Trump getting across the finish line on the popular vote, at least, in 2024, 27% believe in Epstein's suicide. Now let's look at Republicans. It's pretty close. Because I know I'm going to hear from, well, Sam, those are independents, the mythical, creatures, independents out there. What kind of a political force are they really? Well, here's Republicans. And Trump cannot afford to lose Republicans. In fact, the whole reason that Trump won is because, in large part, because of a huge voter participation among Republicans. Republicans came out and voted when Democrats didn't. 33% of Republicans believe in Epstein's suicide, 27% believe the FBI and the DOJ that there is no list, and 20% say that the case is closed. So, here is what's operative, conducted from June 12th, 10th to the 12th by Rasmussen Reports about a month ago. There was a national survey done of approximately 1,000 U.S. likely voters. And a very important question was asked. How important is the rule of law, ensuring that public officials are held to the same standard of justice as other citizens? How many people do you think said it was very important or somewhat important? The answer is 93%. Epstein is no longer just about Epstein. It is a representation of the elites having one standard of justice and the rest of us suckers having to cross our T's and dot our I's and do everything right. Not just in big matters and big criminal cases. I'm talking about everything. Look at, what was one of the big news stories today? I'm going to give you an example of this. Small example. Trump got on Truth Social this morning and put Adam Schiff on blast. Did you see this, Robbie? I got it here. Well, it's basically Trump's Department of Urban Housing and Development, HUD, via Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, discovered that Adam Schiff allegedly engaged in some mortgage fraud. And this case, as I understand it, deals with the allegation that he, kind of like Letitia James up in New York, the attorney general who was out to get Trump from day one, basically declared that a house that was not his primary residence was in fact his primary residence to get a cheaper, more favorable mortgage. Now, what is this about? If the facts are as they say, it's deeply problematic for Adam Schiff. Now, again, here I just want to get stuck in the weeds. I want to explain this because you and I, okay, if we lie on our taxes, if we lie on a application for a mortgage, particularly a publicly backed mortgage, a federal loan, if we engage in any kind of acts of moral turpitude and it's discovered, it's game over. We get burned. And it doesn't really matter if we're Democrats or Republicans. We're the little people. They will come after us. And I'm astounded that somebody in public office, prominent public office, now a sitting senator, but once upon a time a congressman, longtime Congressman Adam Schiff, would do something like this, knowing that this could be so easily discovered. And the short answer is that the elites in this country for way too long believed accurately that they could just get away with stuff. That there was a different set of rules for them to operate by. And I hope that they bring criminal charges. I hope, and by the way, don't say that this was, it was his, how do you know it wasn't his primary residence? Because in order to qualify to be a congressman in California, his primary residence has to be in the district in which he resides and is elected from. That has to be his primary residence. This is his DC home that he hangs out in when he's in Washington. It's not his primary residence. That's the issue, right? So this guy got caught, right? But so many of them over the years did all sorts of terrible things. And even not so terrible. They broke the law. And they thought they could get away with it because they did. And that's what this Epstein deal is a representation of. So getting back to Epstein, I've said this yesterday, I said this last week. Pam Bondi, when she said that the documents were on her desk, when Pam Bondi brought in the conservative influencers, gave them all binders, they all lined up, they took their photo there on the South Lawn or wherever the hell they were in the White House, and it was a big to-do. And then drops a memo in the middle of the weekend, hoping it'll disappear, going, oh, there's nothing here, see you later. Without explaining the most important thing, that a lot of this information, a lot of this, if we can call it evidence, but basically evidence, is under seal, under court-ordered seal, and all she had to do as a Republican who says, well, here's the courts again. Turns out I even as Attorney General can't release it. It's not under my direct control. Or Gosh, you should have said nothing. How's that? So this is rapidly becoming a mess for Trump. And according to Rasmussen, his approval numbers are going down. Trump approval today, according to Rasmussen, -4. It's almost down to April lows after a 15% market correction. Remember, things were spiraling a little bit in that moment. Trump, of course, proven right. Now, is this a passing issue? Yeah, but among independents, he's at -19 today, according to Mark Mitchell. His comment on this was, in a word, oof. And that's precisely where we're at. This is an oof moment. And Mitchell absolutely believes, in looking at the numbers in his polling, that it's all tied to this mess, this Epstein deal. So it begets a conversation about what Trump ought to do about this, and raises a question of timing for me as well. I don't know that Pam Bondi can survive this. I think, but again, it's tough to replace a pivotal member of the cabinet at this stage of the game. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Folks, this Epstein deal is maddening for me on so many levels. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Yes, for the umpteenth time, and I'm responding to some of these emails I'm getting. For the umpteenth time, I do not want to see the president's agenda derailed. That is my bias here. And of course, I'd like to see justice done for the victims. And I also want to see the people that covered this up be held responsible. Now, I have, by the way, you got a lot of these Democrats now. They tried to attach to a piece of legislation that was completely unrelated to this. The Democrats did a resolution to release the files. So there was a bill making its way through the House Rules Committee. It was the Genius Act. The Genius Act dealt with basically a regulatory framework for stable coins, okay? Nothing to do with Epstein. And they tacked on this measure demanding that Attorney General Pam Bondi publish all the documents on a public website within 30 days. Now, I have by the way, Robbie, I have a theory on actually, because listen, I understand the Democrats. I get them, and I know them like the back of my hand. The Democrats, knowing they were going to, there was a possibility that they would come, lose in November. On some level, they had to realize this. I could imagine, if I were them, a universe where I would take whatever actual real evidence was at my disposition that was not controlled by the courts. I would have gotten rid of it. And then the next thing that I would have done is created a report that just implicates Trump. And then I would goad Trump and his supporters into release the Epstein files. Trump gets into office. They look at this report. They're like, this is nonsense. What the hell is this? Then there's some back and forth. Pam Bondi does stupid stuff. And the report that, implicates Trump, but kind of in the same way that the Steele dossier implicated Trump in something that has since been disproven completely and ridiculed. Now Trump is going to be attacked by the Democrats for not releasing it. It also explains why it wasn't released before. It was a setup. Is this possible? Absolutely. Now, listen to just how excited these Democrats are. Here's Ro Khanna, a Democrat congressman, talking about how he just wants to do the right thing. Gotta get this released.
Mr. Speaker, I introduced today an amendment demanding the full release of the Epstein files. The Speaker's Rules Committee should demand a vote tomorrow of every member of Congress. Yes, we should release it, or no, we should not. This is a question of whose side are you on? Are you on the side of protecting the rich and the powerful who've put their thumb on the scales of government to suck out millions of dollars while working-class Americans suffer? Or are you on the side of the people? The Attorney General said on her desk was the Epstein file. And now she's saying, no, 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 nothing to see, don't release it. This is a question of trust.
Well, listen, he's right about Pam Bondi, but this is all performative stunting, okay? Here's Eric Swalwell with more of the same.
Hey, Congressman.
What's going on?
What the is up with Epstein's files?
Oh, boy. Well, look, Elon Musk told us why Donald Trump doesn't want you to know what's in them. I know why Kash Patel and people who work for Donald Trump are going to bury the files for Donald Trump. That makes sense. He's going to fire them. But what about House Republicans? Do they work for Donald Trump? I think they probably do. But they are the first branch of government. They have subpoena power. Why aren't they using their subpoena power? Guess what? Democrats are going to get to work on this, and we're going to do everything we can to unearth them, because if there is corruption going on at the Department of Justice, especially to protect child sex trafficking and whatever, who knows what Donald Trump's involvement is in that, you should know.
By the way, how did somebody this retarded ever make it into Congress? I don't know. This guy is cringe how stupid he is. But where were the Democrats in the I'm just going to say, in the last 4 years that they were in power, that they had a president? Merrick Garland was the attorney general. Where were any of these people calling on these Epstein files, mysterious files, to be released? Nowhere. They weren't to be heard. And by the way, to be clear, Epstein got arrested under Trump's first term, okay? And any subsequent investigation could have all been unearthed on day one under Joe Biden. And yet the Democrats circled the wagons and didn't want to talk about it. And the easy explanation is that it implicates people. Now, Dershowitz has been speaking out a lot about Alan Dershowitz, obviously a very famous lawyer, and someone who had been accused wrongfully of participating in this. And because of the accusations, he had dispensation to get into the evidence that was there in order to defend himself. Now, he can't release any of it, but he can talk about it in a roundabout way. And he has been making those rounds. He has been talking. And here's Dershowitz talking about there being no physical list. And I believe him when he knows what he's talking about.
The Trump administration could release tonight.
No, there is no client list. There never has been a client list. A client list suggests that Jeffrey Epstein made a list of people to whom he trafficked women. What there is a redacted FBI affidavit from accusers. There are several of them. From accusers that accuse that accuse various people of having improper sex. And that has been redacted. The names of the people accused have been blacked out.
So, who are these people? Dershowitz answers it.
I did only investigations. I know who all these people are. I could figure out, based on everything that I saw, who Mr. X is, Mr. Y is, and Mr. Z. I can tell you right now, none of them are public figures who are currently in office. Some of them were previously in office. Some of them are dead. But there is no client list. And the redactions could be undone if you go to court. So many of the things that are being suppressed by two judges in Manhattan. And they're doing it largely to protect the alleged accusers who are, in the view of the judges, victims, even though we don't know what their actual status is. But the judges have issued orders, which is why I can't disclose things I'd love to disclose, saying that you can't disclose this information. But Pam Bondi and the Justice Department and Donald Trump are not responsible for that. I don't know of any information that they could disclose that they haven't disclosed. Now, maybe there is some, but I'm simply not aware of it. And so I think it's important to place the blame where the blame deserves to be placed. The vast majority of people who are in the files, and I know them all, I've seen all the names, the vast, vast majority of them have already been disclosed. They're in articles all over the world. They're in books that have been written. So if we got everything, you would be shocked how few names are there that haven't already been disclosed. The media hasn't, by the way, done a good enough job in finding the people who have been disclosed in the public record. So that's that list.
There we go. That's it. I'm telling you. Now, to me, all Pam Bondi, did you hear the judges in Manhattan? All Pam Bondi had to do, okay? All she had to do was, it's the Manhattan judges. New York, it's the same cabal of radical leftist judges that are causing this, and let it be. So what next with Pam Bondi? Stay tuned. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. 702-820-1234 is the number to call if you've been in an accident, you've been hurt, and you need help. 702-820-1234, Sam & Ash Injury Law offices in California and Nevada, because you deserve what's right. So, well, listen, I don't know if you remember back to the post-election period when Trump was putting together, assembling his cabinet. One of the things when we were talking about the post of Attorney General, I told you what I thought was the most important qualification for that job. I wanted someone who was actually a good lawyer. Loyalty, right, to the president is one thing. You need that. The person has to be loyal, and they can't fold like a cheap suit the way Jeff Sessions did in the first weeks of Donald Trump's first presidency. Okay, so that's foundational. I have been one of the most patient conservatives out there when it comes to Pam Bondi. A lot of people out there have been highly critical of her, in particular over a sense that things aren't moving as quickly as they should with prosecutions, investigations alike, right? Now, I don't know whether or not these cases that, again, for example, there apparently is a broad conspiracy case being built against members of the, past Democratic administrations, from James Comey to Clapper to, to people and probably on the Hillary Clinton team and Barack Obama team, and basically, conspiring against Donald Trump and violating the civil rights of individuals on Team Trump, including the presidents. Now, we hear about a case like that. These cases take an enormous amount of time to develop. It is entirely unreasonable that 6 months in, there'd be a case ready to go, ready to charge. The minute that you file charges, that you get an indictment and you bring somebody to court, the clock is ticking. You need to put on a trial quickly. You need to have everything ready. These things do not happen overnight. So I have been very defensive of Pam Bondi because I think some of the criticisms of her have been unfair. But I am losing my mind right now over how silly she's been with this This stupid Epstein thing. This is childish. Now, I do not believe that Matt Gaetz ought to be dusted off and brought back in next month. There are, and by the way, I have to thank a friend of mine for sending me this because, because and Jared, thank you for sending it. There's a theory out there floating around that Trump is going to use the Senate recess to appoint a new attorney general, and that person is going to be Matt Gaetz. Now, I can't tell you, I'm not saying that. I have no knowledge as to whether or not that's going to happen or not going to happen. The fact is, during the recess, there's appointments can't be made, but it's not a permanent fix, and the problem is always going to be legitimacy. So it's not the best way forward. Number one. Number two, Matt Gaetz is not the answer. He's not a serious lawyer. He's never, he's not a federal prosecutor. He's not somebody who, operates at brain levels required to handle the job. So I think one of the better types of prosecutors, attorney generals that you could have is somebody who is both highly loyal to Trump and somebody who is, who has a history of being a federal prosecutor. Okay. Now there's a list of people there that, could be drawn on. Again, I think, obviously it's Trump's decision, but, I don't know that I have the highest levels of confidence in Pam Bondi. Now, Harmeet Dillon, for example, who is in the Civil Rights Division, very strong Trump supporter and a brilliant lawyer and absolutely on message when it comes to how she presents herself. That is a name that's been floated out there. Robbie here, I'm going to give him credit for this, although I've said this in the past too, but Robbie's zeroed in on a belief that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, that him and Trump have bromanced and resurrected their positive vibes, and that he, a very smart, accomplished litigator, well, he was a military lawyer, right, Robbie? That was his background. DeSantis is a smart dude, okay? Do not sleep on him. And he is someone who understands how to use the levers of power. He did it in Florida in an absolutely ruthless way and disemboweled the Democrats' efforts to steal Florida and to quote unquote turn it blue. So DeSantis, I agree, Robbie. The loyalty front with Trump, well, he's a former opponent. There's some disloyalty there that has rubbed me the wrong way. I detested, and I have a hard time forgiving DeSantis for his lack of condemnation of the lawfare that was launched against Trump. I remember, I'll never forget the Mar-a-Lago raid. And to me, that was always a litmus test. How you reacted to that as an American, sort of determinative. I was very determinative for me of whether or not you had any sense of justice. And for conservatives, that was the moment to rally behind Trump. At the very last moment, and that was just. Remember when DeSantis stood there, and they asked him? I was standing in like a field somewhere, right, in a baseball field, or doing and he was in the midst of his campaign. And I know he got $100 million from all these big anti-Trump GOP donors. And everybody was telling him, do this, do that, go up, go down. And he just stood there. He goes, well, this is a sad day for America. Meanwhile, Vivek Ramaswamy was out in front of the courthouse, impromptu press conference, screaming about how this kind of stuff can't be allowed to happen in America. I mean, it's a night and day. So I have that in the back of my head. But I don't think Trump is going to pick DeSantis. I'm not even sure if DeSantis would take the position because it would be a downgrade from being the governor of a very large, populous, and thriving state. So, I mean, could DeSantis appoint his wife to replace him in Florida? That's a possibility. She has her presidential ambition. But remember, Trump would see that coming. And given that Byron Donalds has already put his hat in the ring and he's an ally of Trump, I don't know if that would happen. So I don't think it's going to be DeSantis. I hope it's not going to be Matt Gaetz. I hope if Pam Bondi leaves, it's a serious lawyer because the job is serious. Building a federal prosecution against a bunch of the top Washington, D.C. insiders. And I'm not talking about Epstein right now. I'm talking about the business at hand, which is permanently disemboweling the machine that sought to destroy Donald Trump, because it wasn't about Trump. It was about us. We had our own government. We had people powerful in this country who decided that my voice and your voice didn't matter. We can never let them get away with this. If we do, all bets are off. To me, this is the most important, critical part of the mission. And to this extent, I agree with the folks out there saying, oh, enough of the Epstein thing, because there are bigger fish to fry, like James Comey, like Clapper, like Brennan, all these guys. A targeted attack on some of these pardons, for example, that do absolve key malicious actors of criminal liability, that to me is a worthwhile pursuit. But not, but again, I hope if Pam Bondi stays, she better be up to the task. And just, I'm going to say one last thing about it. Just because Trump is supporting Pam Bondi and putting out a nice tweet about her doesn't mean that he's not thinking in the back of his mind, I have a problem. And some of these poll numbers that the Democrats desperately want to say, oh, it's immigration. And of course, he's on the Epstein list. Yeah. Okay. This is damage to Trump potentially. Man, can you imagine if the actual Epstein list was damaging to Trump? They didn't release it. They didn't release it a week in October, 3 weeks before the election in 2024. Who actually believes that? Does anybody actually believe this? So it comes back to my theory that they have some silly document that they put together that quote unquote implicates Trump, and it's all flimsy and stupid, designed to be a red herring and a poison pill for the incoming administration to deal with. That is what I think is the more likely explanation. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Be back in a moment.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Okay. Mayor Bass, our favorite Marxist mayor of Los Angeles, might I remind you, only 270 miles away from Vegas, which I think is a little too close for comfort if you ask me. She is celebrating a massive drop in homelessness. They did it. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars and they finally got a reduction. Now, the reduction is not quite as large as you would think. 3%. Here is Mayor Bass talking about it. So excited. So excited. Listen to her.
When I was on my way over here, I got a text message from our governor congratulating Los Angeles for moving the needle forward.
For the second year in a row, homelessness has decreased in Los Angeles, according to LA Mayor Karen Bass.
Are there still unhoused Angelenos? Yes. Are there still encampments? Yes. Is reducing homelessness by having people in motels still very expensive, and do we need to look for more cost-effective ways? Yes. But all of this are step forward.
Well, some comments about this, friends. 3%. By the way, there's about 45,000 at the last count, 45,252 homeless, went down to 43,699 homeless. So that is 1,553 to be exact, homeless people, okay? Now, a volunteer says that the drop in homelessness could be due to a faulty street count. 3% is not 20%, so you could see it be a bit of a rounding error. Here's what was broadcast on local news in Los Angeles just the other day.
LASA collects this data 3 ways, through a street count, a shelter count, and a survey. But John Alley, co-founder of the Santa Monica Coalition, was part of the street count in Echo Park this year. He says he doesn't fully trust the numbers.
They started early and they ended by 12 midnight. They reduced the number of volunteers. They weren't allowed to go up to RVs. They weren't allowed to go into garages. So how many did they miss? It's like crime not being reported.
There are still tens of thousands of people experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles, according to the most recent LASA count. In the city of LA, that number is roughly 43,000. And in LA County, it's roughly 72,000, about a 4% decrease in the last 2 years.
Well, here's another idea. Do you know that 2,508 homeless people died on the sidewalks of Los Angeles last year? So here, a 3% reduction. Oh, we had 1,500 people less. Meanwhile, 2,500 people died. Homeless people died, right? Primary cause, I imagine, of that being illicit drugs, particularly fentanyl. Turns out that the greatest solution that Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass have for ending homelessness is poisoning them with drugs from China. This is sick. Now, I'm bringing this up because, number one, right here in Las Vegas, those of you who are local to me, California, LA is dangerously close to us. So whatever stupid things they do in LA is going to become partly our problem. Crime routinely spreads from Southern California to Southern Nevada. It happens. It's a 4 or 5 hour drive. Easy to get here, relatively. So just pointing that out, one thing. But the other part of this is that Gavin Newsom is hell-bent on becoming president in 2029. He's got his eyes set on the next election. And he's again popping up on conservative podcasts, making the rounds. And I don't know why these guys continue to give him a platform. By the way, it's cringe. He is awful to look at. Now, those of you who've got the Sam Cam, you got the video, so you can watch this. I got to play this for you. So, by the way, speaking of the homeless, here's Newsom. Newsom is contradicting himself. Here's him on the Sean Ryan show on yesterday, this big 4-hour sit down where Newsom is talking about all sorts of issues, fighting back, rewriting history, okay? And he talks about how the cleanup of San Francisco had nothing to do with the Chinese dictator's visit. Now, problem for him is that previous of his comments were recorded on this. So here's what we have.
You got a lot of when Xi came to California.
Yeah.
And, you know, the big narrative was, and I tend to believe it, is, you know, we hear a lot about San Francisco and the homelessness and pooping on the road and all that kind of stuff. And it seemed like all of that was cleaned up when Xi came to town.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Complete bull.
That's complete bull.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true.
That, of course, was Gavin Newsom himself in October in a 2023 presser. Okay. Oh my gosh. This is just wild. Here's, by the way, here's Newsom talking about immigration. He says people that look like me are not going to take, pointing to himself as a white guy, I guess, people like me that look like me are not going to take construction jobs.
You care about farmers and ranchers? If that's what your number one go-to commitment, then you sure as hell should care about their workers. 41% of our construction workers, Texas and California have the highest percentage of their construction workers that would fall into that category. How the hell do we rebuild Altadena and Palisades? We're going to need a peak next year. We estimate about 70,000 workers. Without that workforce, ain't going to happen. You're struggling here. You imagine it peak there. So I think there needs to be a pathway for those folks as we secure the border, and we own that issue.
Do you feel that they're taking American jobs?
Not in Tulare County. Not in Ventura County. I don't know many people that want a job out there in those packing facilities. Mm-hmm. I don't see many people look like me jumping at those jobs. I just don't. Maybe there's some exceptions. I haven't seen the evidence of that.
What is he doing with his hands? So weird. Okay, I got a break here. Bottom of the hour. I'll be right back with this. Just crazy stuff. This guy wants to be president. Mark my words. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Welcome, folks. The What's Right show is on. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian behind the What's Right microphone. I am beyond perplexed, fascinated actually, with the psychology of people that love Gavin Newsom. Newsom, of course, the governor of California, here from Nevada to our immediate left, is a psycho. This guy, look at his mannerisms. Those of you watching the Sam Cam, he does this thing with his hands and talks, and he lies like it's not a problem. He has no issue saying one thing one day and something completely different the next. And he acts with this kind of impunity because, of course, he's never been properly challenged. Now, I realize that I've talked a lot in the past year in particular about Newsom becoming the likely Democrat nominee in the next presidential election. I even, there was a chance that if Biden dropped out, Newsom would have been the proper fill-in. Newsom, by the way, did everything right politically to position himself as the darling of the Democratic Party leadership. He carried water for Biden. He was meticulous about it. I mean, he never, ever once went off script, supported Biden in the face of all the insanity. Then, as soon as the tide changed and Kamala Harris got, shuffled in, bam, he was supporting Kamala Harris. This guy is prepping his next moves. Now, the issue I wrestle with is, will he get traction? Could he become, I think he can win the Democratic nomination. The question is, can he win the general election? Will people, the general American public, swing states like Pennsylvania, be smitten by a smooth-talking sociopath? Will they be persuaded by all of the Newsom sign language? And can Newsom run from his record? Now, he's doing all these shows, right? He went on with Charlie Kirk a few months ago. Now he's on with Sean Ryan. talking to conservatives, and they're all being really nice to him, and they're platforming him, which is, I think, stupid and going to backfire. But regardless, I like when he gets asked about things that, are indisputable parts of his record. For example, gender surgeries, butchering of young kids, some as young as 9, 10, 11, and 12. This is the most shameful, barbaric practice that we have engaged in modern America. It really is. And he gets asked about it and gives this weaselly answer. I mean, listen to how absolutely just weaselly this is. He tries to find common ground. Even
what about for your values? I mean, is 8 years old too young?
Yeah, I mean, look, I now that I have a 9-year-old, just became 9. Come on, man, I get it. So those are legit. It's interesting, just the issue of age. It's interesting. As someone that's been so focused on equality, broadly, LGBT rights, particularly gay marriage. Mm-hmm. The trans issue for me is also novel. It's over the last few years, I'm trying to understand as much as anyone else. Whole pronoun thing, trying to understand all of that. That was like the hell. I mean, all that stuff. I get it. All this stuff started to collapse on us. I joked with Charlie about Latinx.
California passed a law, and he signed it, that made it a matter of state policy to welcome runaway kids who wanted to get surgeries and basically deprive their parents of their parental rights. This is radical. California has been one of the most radical states in the country on this. And Newsom's the tip of the spear. And now, thanks to Sean Ryan and other so-called conservatives, I mean, I know Ryan's a conservative guy. Charlie Kirk's conservative. What are they doing? They're just giving him a means by which he can pivot away and create a credible construct for why he's moderating. I did a listening tour. I went around, I talked to conservatives. The same way that he is now going, well, now that I have a 9-year-old, I kind of get it. Wow, well, the critics here have a valid point. I think I'm going to change. And that's all that people will be convinced by this. I promise you. It worries me endlessly that this guy could possibly become president. He's an absolute psychotic weasel. I left California because of him. What the Democrats aren't, California is not your Nevada Democrats. The California Democrats are psychotic. And they are extremists. And they have absolutely destroyed. You know what California ought to be? I love listening to Gavin Newsom about how great California is. Oh, we're number 8 and this and that. Does anybody actually believe that California is better off after 8 years of Gavin Newsom? Does anybody actually believe that California generally is a well-run state? It's a laughable premise, particularly to those of us, and many of you share a similar story with me, that have come from California, moved to Nevada. I still remember what an incredible experience I had, within basically a few weeks of being here. Obviously, I had to go to the DMV and get a Nevada license. I went in there in person. I was blown away. What a pleasant experience it was. Nothing like the dystopian nightmare that is a government office in the Republic of California. And the problem is that now people want to double down on this. And look at, by the way, look at this guy There's a guy running for mayor in Minneapolis, Omar Fateh. And this guy is a radical. He's like Mandami. Omar Fateh running for mayor of Minneapolis. He's, I think, a Somalian guy. But here's a social media post by him. This is just yesterday, okay? Yeah, this is coming to America.
Everyone keeps asking me, Omar, why aren't you doing more videos? As a state senator with a second full-time job and a kid on the way, I just haven't been able to find the time. I've also been fighting for you, passing things like tuition-free college for working-class families, rideshare protections for our Uber and Lyft drivers, and the legalization of fentanyl testing strips. But this summer, you're going to be seeing a lot more of me, because we deserve nice things in Minneapolis too. To make an affordable Minneapolis that works for everyone, we need a mayor that works as hard as you do. I'm ready to work hard to 1. Build a Minneapolis that working people can afford to call home. 2. Protect our city from a hostile White House. And 3. Diversify our city's public safety response. By increasing the minimum wage to $20 by 2028 and passing rent stabilization to stop price gouging and incentivizing new construction, we can protect workers. Protecting all of our communities from Donald Trump means not letting MPD interact with ICE, whether it's for an immigration raid or not. Our residents deserve a mayor that will stand up to Donald Trump and say, no, not in our community. Did you know that the city's own data showed that 47% of calls to MPD can be diverted to non-police response? Cops aren't social workers. Investments in programs like these ensure that the appropriate response arrives when we call 911. And we can actually free up police resources to focus on violent crime that detracts from community safety. Oh, I'm sorry. It's my campaign managers again. They've been on my case all week about make more videos. I'll find the time tomorrow.
This guy's going to show up at City Hall, Robbie. I don't know if you guys, those of you who can see the Sam Cam on Spotify and YouTube, he's going to show up at City Hall and he's going to be like, I'm the captain now. This guy's freaky. He's a full-blown communist. Well, you know what's interesting? I wonder to what extent Trump is psyching out Democrats to go further to the left. This is what's going on with Mamdani. By the way, Mamdani, all the way back in 2020, they were starting to unearth all these crazy stuff that he did before he was running for mayor of New York. And Mamdani actually said this about the types of crimes that police in New York should not respond to.
There are so many responsibilities we have given to police that frankly should have nothing to do with their departments. A homeless person is on a train. They do not need a stranger with a gun to come and resolve that situation. If somebody is jaywalking, if somebody is surviving, going through domestic violence, there are so many different situations that would be far better handled by people trained to deal with those specific situations as opposed to an individual with a gun.
Wait, what? Police shouldn't respond to domestic violence? Who's supposed to handle it? The Sharia Council? What? A woman is getting beaten, getting threatened with murder by a partner, and the police aren't supposed to respond to this? And this guy wants to be mayor of America's largest, most important city. Is Donald Trump going to psych enough Democrats out in these blue states and blue cities to vote for absolute lunatics, force the Democratic Party into the absolute furthest fringe, and then watch its complete and total implosion and destruction? It's an interesting point. The problem is it's going to take half of America with it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. That was a funny story, Robbie, you just shared with me. That by the way, let me get the show started and maybe we'll get into it. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome to the What's Right Show. I am Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. So when I tell you about California, Gavin Newsom, etc., I know what I'm talking about. So Robbie has apparently producer Robbie has a friend, female friend of his wife and him, and gal's going through a breakup, and she says basically, I have a bad taste, apparently some bad decisions regarding men that I've made, and I need to fix that. Gradually over time, the conversation shifts to the subject of politics and Gavin Newsom particularly, because he's coming on the national stage, etc. Now, this young lady goes, "Well, hey, I think he's cute." And Robbie tells her, "I hate to break this to you, but you still have a lot of things to learn when it comes to men." Okay. The thing is, Robbie, these women think that Mamdami's cute. I don't know about that pirate-looking guy in Minneapolis, but not so cute. His head looks like an alien. But anyway, but women do. They think Gavin Newsom's a good-looking guy. They do. I'm going to say something controversial here for a change. Liberal women are completely lost when it comes to dating. And men, if they're into men, they're terrible at picking men. Did you see this TikTok? This woman, she's like, where are all the liberal men? She's looking for liberal men, can't find liberal men. She looks to be in her 20s. Do we have the tape? Yeah, okay, here it is.
I don't think there's anything harder than finding a liberal boyfriend. Where is he? Where is he? Who of my people? Are you guys having liberal boyfriends? Who has a liberal boyfriend? Raise your hand. Where'd you find him? It's such a problem for me. It really is. It really is a problem. And if you don't understand why it's a problem, then you just don't get it. Not even a liberal, like maybe like a Democrat, like a registered Democrat. I just want to find a dude that voted for Kamala Harris. I'm really struggling. I know 70 million people voted for her, so there's got to be one that is attractive and my type and in the general vicinity of me.
Had to have voted for Kamala Harris. This girl is, she's not an unattractive girl and not great looking either. So, okay. The guy has to be attractive, has to have voted for Kamala Harris and be in her vicinity. I don't know how, close of a concentric circle that is, but whatever. Okay. Maybe, miss, the problem is that liberal men your age aren't attractive. They might be physically attractive. But remember the whole messaging? Remember all the white dudes for Kamala? Remember that whole campaign? We made fun of it endlessly because they put out videos, right? And they're designed like ads, and they had actors that were hired to play the roles, but it was conceived of a visualization of what was projected as liberal men in America. And it was gross. And maybe I don't understand women fully. I think I do a little bit. And I played that clip for a lot of our female friends. I have to admit this. And I said, are any of these guys attractive to you? I'm like, oh, they're all betas. Once upon a time, it used to be that men, were strong and women liked men who were strong. I have to believe it's still in there somewhere, right? It's just programming. You just do not delete a millennia of societal evolution. left is trying hard to do this. But anyway, you don't just delete it. So I think the problem. I mean, yeah, a guy like Zohran Mandami, they like him when he's talking on camera. I don't know. You run into a guy somewhere at a party and he's not a hard-charging, ambitious, wannabe communist dictator of New York, and he's just a beta supporter of it. Oh, I voted for Kamala, yeah. Even Gavin Newsom is repulsive. To me, look, I'm not, I don't know. Just his whole mannerisms and everything, yuck. Objectively, in a snapshot, headshot, attractive guy, sure, but the whole demeanor is just gross. Well, I don't know. This reminds me of the LA lesbian too, wanted to move out of the US, doesn't know where to go, but then says LA is the perfect place. This was funny too.
I really want to leave America and I don't know where to go or how. If anybody knows anything that fits these 4 categories that I'm looking for, please let me know. It would be so helpful. First, public transit, very important. Obviously I can drive, but I don't want to have a car to live, which is what you need to do in America, and it's really annoying. I recently went to Japan. That was awesome. That would be amazing if I don't need a car to live my life. 2, social safety nets are great. I'm scared to live in America. I don't know how people do it. Like, without free healthcare or socialized healthcare, it's crazy to me that people live here at all. So something like that would be lovely. Number 3, I'm queer. I want to go somewhere where I'm safe. I know Japan, gay marriage isn't legal. Same thing in like China. But I do think living in those places would still be fine. So I'm willing to compromise on gay marriage, but I definitely need to be safe. 4, diversity, if possible, would be great. I'm incredibly lucky that I've grown up in Southern California. I know I'm not going to find anything like that somewhere else, which is unfortunate because like that's probably the best part of America and that's what they're trying to get rid of right now. But I just don't think I could live anywhere where there's like one group of people. That'd be crazy. I think I would go crazy. So if anybody knows anywhere to go or how, it'd be so much appreciated. Thank you so much.
These people vote. These people vote. That's frightening. So never underestimate the chances of a guy like Gavin Newsom to become president, and we have to do everything in our power to stop it. Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. I'll see you tomorrow, folks. Be well.